your hockey mentorship world?
We're getting a much more positive response this season. There's 20 teams in the group. I've got 13 of them now that are working with me in some degree, some more so than others.
No.
We've got one U18 team that's going to provincials. They've asked me to be a full-time participant or as close to it as possible to help them round out their preparation, and they want to do well in that. They're hosting, so they've got an end goal that they want to work with. But yeah, I'm working with groups from U11 up, and it's a voluntary thing. It's not mandated, and that's the issue, is getting them to accept that somebody can help you out without pointing fingers and making you feel badly about what you're doing. A lot of them are new coaches, so they need as much help as they can garner. Some of the more experienced fellas, as always, feel that they've got it all figured out anyways, and that's fine with me. But no, it's going much better than last season.
I got a question, Rick. When we mentored back in the day with P3, it was a paid thing and a mandated thing.
Yeah.
Is yours a paid thing?
It is.
And when you say it's not mandated, how do you get your foot in the door in terms of respect, trust, and being able to mentor? Because to be invited to the U18 is really a tribute to your ability to communicate, gain the trust and respect, for them to ask you to become more involved.
Well, in full disclosure there, the fellow that's the head coach is a kid that I coached since he was 5. Right through his Bantam years. And he has also coached with me as an assistant coach for 3 years. Interestingly enough, on that subject of gaining the trust, it's the assistant coaches that you need to also take into account. I've had a situation where I was invited in by a head coach, and as soon as I got involved, the assistants went and stood in a corner by themselves, and one of them actually told me he didn't believe what I was telling him. So part and parcel of what you deal with. But yeah, how it works is I'm introduced by their coaching and development director. Then I make an introductory presentation via email and invite them. I'm free to go and observe practices and/or games, and then meet casually with them after, just introduce myself. And that process has worked. It's not a here I am, pay attention to what I'm doing. I am interested enough to be here. If there's anything I can help you with or any questions you have, feel free to ask. You have my email, you have my phone number. Give me a call. Interestingly enough, after the holiday season, things went quiet for about 3 weeks. Through Christmas, New Year's, and I had a couple of fellas reach out and say, I'd like you to come to a practice with me. So it's a process. It takes time.
I'm just writing that down. The fact they've asked you, that's trust. That's amazing. Because I don't think I've reached that stage yet. With anybody. I've gone out, been invited out, but this year it's with Tom. It's like we're just friends. We talk all the time. I did the mission statement exercise for Tom, and I've got a copy of it that I really believe it sort of kept the team together of parents and provided a lot more support. And what I did, Rick, is I did the exercise with the parents while Tom was running practice.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tom talked to me after he and his son came up, and the parents actually were asked to create a group that would write it. And they did. I just received it yesterday or day before yesterday and shared it with Tom. But that was huge because standing in the stands watching Tom's team play to qualify for the semifinal, I sat with the parents, or I was standing, and the atmosphere was totally positive, energetic. They were coaching in the stands and cheering and repeating. Tom's video had done a video on forecheck and as well attack triangle, and they were shouting cue words from the stands from miles away that the kids couldn't hear, but it just, the idea of him sending that video out, the beginning of the season, at that age, U13, before that, all of the parents coached. This year, there's no parent coaches. Now, Wes's team is all parent coaches, U13. But Tom's staff is Cassie Campbell and his son, and they didn't need coaches. And there was quite a resentment. So Tom has coaches to look after the doors, and they're involved that way, but it's a much better climate for him. And I'm going to mention this to you, Rick, parent versus non-parent coaches. What's your take? Is it good or bad? At what point do you allow it or not allow it?
I don't believe I have a fixed philosophy on that, Wally. Dependent upon the competitive level at midget AAA, even AA hockey, I don't believe that parent coaches are necessarily a positive. Certainly below that level, it's hard to get volunteers to work with kids that aren't their own. For instance, I got involved as a coach simply because I'm at the rink all the time anyways with the boys. I may as well be doing something as just watching, and that's what got me started. But in the event that I have parent coaches involved, part of my process when I'm coaching is that we have an understanding going in before we ever do anything as a team, that everybody has input, but somebody has to make ultimate decisions. It's going to be me as the head coach. And if you can't be on side with that, if you can't put your ego aside, then you're not the parent coach that I need involved with this group. And I just ask them to step out.
Have you encountered that?
Again, you have to be upfront about it and you have to have the discussion.
Have you ever had to turn coaches away?
I have.
Okay.
Mid-season in one case.
Okay.
Well, I'll give you a little background on what Wally was saying is their backs were up, some of the parents, but they wanted to coach. And I didn't know any of these people, right? And so I'd said a thing, well, if we're short, because 3 is all we don't need. There's only 15 skaters on the team. But if, short, I asked somebody and they got together and sent me a letter saying, well, we need 2 weeks notice if you need somebody. Well, I mean, I need somebody because like sometimes my son says the client just came in, I can't come to practice, and so anyways, that showed how their backs were up, right?
Yeah.
And there was 6 or 7 of them wanted to coach, and Wally came in and did that. And before that, they resented. You could tell there was a resentment when you'd walk around the rink. And after Wally did his exercise, it was a 180-degree turn, and they were positive. And I was putting different parents on the bench, and then I got things saying, oh, they have to be registered with your team and all this, blah, blah, for insurance and all this. So there's 2 parents that come on and they'll open the gates, one the forward and one the D. And I had one of them come on the ice with me. Either Jim or Cassie could come and get to practice. But it's worked out really nice now. And what Wally talked about is I was teaching the team play, and I thought, I know there's so many different ways to forecheck, right? And different views of how you play in your end, etc. So I made 5-minute videos. They're not great because I'm holding my camera in one hand and moving the objects, and sometimes I'm all over the place. But I sent them to the parents, and I said, "Can you go over with your girl these things?" And that's what Wally was talking about, and they seem to like it. And I think they think I'm showing them some respect because I, pass the stuff through them. And so it's been really good ever since we did that. And then Wally, have you got that sticker, Wally?
Yeah. The magnetic card with the mission statement?
Yeah, mission statement. They put it on a magnetic card, and it's a different points. If you got it, I got one on my fridge.
I was had it in my pocket, and I don't know where the hell it is, but I've emailed it to myself.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, last night, Tom, I'm watching practice. Jordan's team's running the practice.
Oh, here it is. Jim heard me. He just got it here.
Yeah.
You see it?
Yeah. Now I'm going to read, see if I can blow this up to read it.
A little higher, Tom.
Rick, I'll read it to you.
It's a little blurred. Just pull it back a little bit.
Here, I'll read it to you.
There you go. Yeah. Promote the pursuit of excellence through hard work, determination, integrity, ongoing skill development, and friendship. Okay.
Now, everybody
has
a mission statement.
It's a magnetic thing.
Yeah.
Now, what I told Paulette, who's the manager of the other team, I told her 2 months ago, I should do this exercise with your team. Now, it's all parent coaches. They all, 5 parent coaches, you've got support of all the parents. And they all get along. And there's a transition to where there's going to be no parent coaches. And I think I realized that this statement, in terms of what you want to do as a coach, if you read it, and I told her, if you read that statement, it means everything's going well if you're doing things the right way. But if you're shortening the bench, if you're yelling at kids, if you're not working hard, if you're not working on skills, and you're not respecting your relationship or friendships, it has to be addressed. In other words, good coaches do things the right way. Yet coaches don't understand what the right way is. So this holds coaches accountable to what the parents want, because what parent wouldn't want that? Even for the best players, it's pursuit of excellence. And how they do it is with the words that are after that. It's the way to go. So I've found, Rick, you deliver it through a code of conduct. And I think the way to complement this, and I mentioned to next year, there's going to be 3 U13 girls team, all volunteer coaches next year, I'm sure. Because Tom, you probably won't go back. It's not serious enough for you. Now you could.
Well, I'd like to coach a little older so I can do more stuff that.
Yeah, but you're coaching an age of parent coaches are okay, but they don't know how to coach. So all I'm saying is doing this exercise gets the parents to understand this exercise. They're going to now move to Bantam AAA. This exercise has got to be walked by the coach and the parents. So they have a proper perspective moving forward. And I believe, Rick, if this exercise is done by a professional like myself and other people that could deliver it during a practice, because the parents are there anyway, no interference of time, a whole practice, you get a good hour and a half to talk about it and create it, and they write it. The coaches can play with it at coaching clinics, try to do it, but they're too busy with practices. But this is the buffer factor to help the communication between the parents and coaches in terms of the way they're doing things the right way. So anyway, that's what I've learned this year, Rick, because I know you and I talked. You can do a code of conduct. Obviously, who else can that you know? You know, have you got any coaches in mind that you think deliver on it? You've got a good environment and no problems.
People that I've coached with,
Yeah.
one of them, my own son, is he follows that. He's got his own nuances to it, but he's pretty firm with what he does and what he and how he does it. But a key for me, Wally and Tom, is like when I got engaged this year to do the mentoring out there was in November. They've already been on the ice for 4 to 6 weeks. They've already had their parent meeting, and they've missed the opportunity to instill a code of conduct, an understanding of how things, what our objectives are, how we're going to go about it, what are the ground rules of the game, and so on and so forth. They've already had 5, 6 weeks or whatever of conflict within the parent group, conflict within the coaching staff. I did one team last year that invited me in on a more regular basis. He had 5 parents on his bench, and he selected those parents on the basis of these guys are going to cause me a problem, so I'm going to keep them close at hand. Well, all that did was bring it down to ice level. And he didn't have the discussion with them as to why are you here? What do you think? What's your philosophy? We've got to come to some common understanding here and a way to move forward as a group, not as a group of individuals. And again, I've seen that in this year. But ideally, I'd like to get it where you're selected as the coach. I'll be involved with you from that point forward to help you with your parent meeting and help you get things off the ground on a solid footing. And then we'll deal with things as they come up. Does that make sense?
It does, Rick, and I'm going to suggest the code of conduct, which only you can obviously deliver, because you're a professional at it. But it comes from you. It's my way or the highway.
There is an element of that for sure.
This mission statement exercise, it's our way.
And I can see that.
And that's the difference. So if the coaches can't do the code of conduct, and it is complex, it requires a real professional mentality. I believe this done with the parents, and then they hold the coaches accountable that don't do it. And they recruit good parents to get on the board. You know what I'm saying? I've never really thought of this before, but when I saw Tom's parents, you know, they walked away from me, they turned their back on Tom, and I realized, holy cow, volunteer coaches. And Tom, next year, Kyle Wanvig, who's the coach director, is going to coach a U13 girls team. So he's a parent. His daughter's on the team.
Yeah.
And Wes
has coached most of my girls already before, right?
Yep. And Wes said, what about the draft? They're going to draft the players next year somehow.
Yeah.
And I said, well, in my mind,
Well, he's coaching U11, so he should know the players.
He knows the players, but he's got to pick his kid first because
Oh, yeah.
he's driving his kid. So regardless of where she ranks, his kid's going to be with him.
Yeah.
So he forgoes the first pick other than his kid. And I think that, and you know, at U13,
Hopefully this kid's good.
well, I'm pretty sure she'd have some genes that would, you know, and it doesn't matter. If you're a good parent coach and you fulfill the mission statement exercise, the support for the technical, it comes from Rick. Most of your work is related to the technical, is it not?
I'm sorry, run that by me again, Wally.
Well, I'm saying I talk about behavioral coaching, which is the mission statement exercise and integrity and consistency. But most of your mentorship work would be technical teaching, systems, competitiveness, dealing with behaviors, how to create the good culture.
That would be accurate, yeah.
Yeah. So something that head coaches are responsible for, you are supporting them for. You're giving them the tools for X's and O's and the culture of the team.
Okay, I can go along with that. It's not that much X's and O's, to be honest with you. I'm not a big X and O's guy. I'm more of a concept guy, but yeah, theoretically or in practical terms, you're right.
When you say concept guy, what do you mean?
I'm not huge on structure. Outside of the defensive zone, I like to teach the attack options. I like to teach the support concept, the idea of puck protection, of read and react, old school stuff. In fact, I'm actually using, you remember the old goals series?
Yeah.
I'm using both those as a basis for a lot of the stuff that I'm putting out there, because I send weekly submissions to all the coaches with just some thoughts and some things you may or may not want to use or incorporate in what you're doing. A little bit of background suggestion. Excuse me. So as far as power play goes, I'm not keen on teaching the umbrella or a 1-3-1 or whatever you want to put. It's about puck movement and foot movement, keeping the penalty kill off balance by keeping the puck moving in the zone, causing them to make decisions, causing them to make mistakes, and then exploiting them when you see them.
See, to me, Rick, that's X's and O's, because that.
I don't consider that X's and O's, because to me, X's and O's says you need to be here and you need to do it this way.
No. X's and O's for us is how do you play in your zone? What's the picture on the power play and the necessary movement and puck skills? How do you work on those and improve those and teach those?
Well, and that's the other part of what I'm doing, Wally, is the details of the game. How to properly execute a pass, how to properly execute a reception.
Yep.
Not just throw it out there and hope he can find it somehow and grab it. The difference between a shot and a pass or a clearing attempt.
Yeah.
Working with a purpose. What do you intend to do here? Why are you intending to do it? What caused you to make that decision? And then make it work.
Yep.
That's the things. I'll give you an illustration, not to cut you off, but the one team I'm working with full time now, he sent me his practice plan for last night. I sent him back some suggestions for emphasis. This is a U18 team. He's a parent coach. And I asked him, you know, if you mind me doing this, just let me know and I'll back away. I don't want to be too forceful here. He came right back to me and said, I don't mind in the least. And I showed what you said to my son. And the son's response was, that guy doesn't miss anything. They don't understand the minute details of the game. and they're receptive to it. Like I was on the ice with them on Monday night, and they were very receptive to the point where virtually every player came over and gave me a fist pump after.
Well, Rick, that's why I want why when I use the term X's and O's, on the other side, I call it behavioral coaching. You're doing the X's and O's perfectly. It's not telling, it's the art of coaching and developing independent thinkers on the ice, but also the teaching of the skills. I'm talking about behavioral coaching in terms of what's acceptable behavior. And your story years ago when you didn't want the players driving is an example of behavioral coaching.
Yeah.
Trust and respect of a rule, shift length and the purpose of that rule, disrespectful behavior, a bad penalty. I call that side of it is behavioral coaching, which influences, if you do that right, and you do X's and O's, you get fist bumps. But if you don't do the behavioral properly, if you're trouble shifting the best players, if you're letting the best players be the power play and they do score occasionally, and you have a turmoil within the culture, you need both. So that's why the Code of Conduct mission statement deals with the cultural side of coaching. And that's when you read it and you look at it. I don't like dealing with X's and O's. But with Kerry Bracco's son's AAA team, I talked to their assistant coach, who's a friend, about behavioral coaching. I think they addressed it. They were sitting some kids and not others for similar bad behaviors. The inconsistency, they lost the respect. They got that on track. But then I discover, watching the team closely at the recent Max Circle K tournament, they have no D-zone cover. Their power play, they've had more goals scored against them with the power play than they've scored for. Now,
never a good situation.
Their breakout is fly the zone. Now, if your breakouts fly the zone, you don't have D-zone cover. They don't have D-zone cover. And I just watched it. So they're missing on the X's and O's and the behavioral, which they got straight, but they're missing on, which you and I know are, they're almost so fundamentally important. But I don't think average coaches are getting that in their coach education. The fundamental parts of the game. What do you deal with? How do you deal with it? So last night with Wes on the ice, they were doing a surfing angling drill, going through the hips, the hands to the puck. And I was talking to Wes as we did the drill, and I explained the center of gravity and the force on the hands, freeing the puck so you get it. And just my conversation with him, he says, well, I took a checking clinic and they never taught any of this. That's what I'm saying. And today I'm going to send Wes the video of the St. Louis Blues from 5 years ago. Stick on puck checking, no more body checking, which is very aggressive. Stick on puck, hips. There's no finishing checks. It's checking through the hips. And so that's what we're talking about here. Somehow the coaching education programs need to be quite a bit better at teaching those things, or teams are going to require mentors like yourself or ourselves, the whole Shark group. And I'm just trying to figure out a way that this is more comfortable, because people don't know what they don't know. And that's why we have our Sharks call. We learn from each other and we're open to learning. And that's what coaches have to do, is not be uncomfortable with what they don't know. Be able to ask questions. The fact you've got people asking you questions, allowing you to provide input, that's an art for you to gain their respect and trust. So, congratulations. I'm really glad that you've reached that moment. So
Well,
So Wally, can I
hopefully it's to
interject
get
here?
down to the kids, not the coaches.
Yeah, I was